The League of Women Voters was founded nearly a century ago, back during the suffrage movement in the 1920s, when the 19th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, giving women the right to vote. The League grew out of that movement to help 20 million women carry out their new responsibilities as voters, encouraging them to use their new power to participate in shaping public policy. And joining us at the roundtable this week are members of the League of Women Voters of the North Country of today, Sally Sears Mack, Betty Ann King, John Bingham. Thank you all for being here with us today. Your mission, when it comes right down to it, really hasn't changed much in 100 years.
No. It's kind of sad, really, but we are still trying to do what we were founded to try to do.
And sad because you're still trying to encourage people to participate, and still it takes an effort to get people to register and to get them out to vote, to motivate them to be involved.
There are lots of young people whom we speak with when we do our voter registration day, usually early fall, and they say, well, why vote? One vote doesn't matter, and alas, one vote matters a great deal. So we do try to convince them, shall I say.
And not only to vote, but also to actively participate, which is a huge part of what you do as well.
Yes, yes. And I think that is a real problem. There are many people out there, including the youth that are now coming in to their own to be able to register to vote, and many of their parents and many of the general public who really do feel that their vote does not count, and that and why bother when there are so many reasons to vote. And that is one of the strong points that we feel of getting youth involved in the process, particularly in the government process, and hoping that not only will they really want to vote, but they'll participate, make a difference, and maybe they'll get their parents to vote too.
And we'll talk a little bit about one of the ways you do that, and that's coming up in just another week. John, you mentioned that's one of the reasons you became a member of the League of Women Voters. You really want to try to encourage young people to get involved in the vote.
Yes, I think the opportunity here with the League, the wonderful programs that they have with youth education is a wonderful avenue for, from my perspective, for letting the students have a voice. They are fabulous. The young people are excellent at participating if they're given a chance, and I think frankly the schools have such hard pressure on them that to get through the curriculum that they have to for the testing and for all of that is becoming more and more difficult for students to have opportunities like this one to meet with the state legislators and a number of other government related activities.
Has it become more of a challenge? Did the schools used to do more as far as encouraging students and their civic responsibilities? Has that really become, now is it really you folks? Are you one of the few organizations out there encouraging young people to register, to vote, and become active? Are they not really getting that as much in the schools anymore?
Well, I think that all has to do with the curricula and the amount of time that is allotted to various things. One of the things that we tried to do with the event that is coming up, Meet Your State Legislators, is to make it educator friendly. And we did that by going to the standards and the key ideas that are part of the New York State government curriculum. I do think that the pressures that are on teachers and the whole educational system today make it more difficult for hands-on activities. They are time-consuming, even though they are very rewarding, and as we all know, probably more lasting as far as the true education process is. But I think that that's an issue. But we have wonderful, wonderful government and history teachers in our schools. And we have found nothing but great cooperation and are very impressed with the students that they do provide or that they do educate, and that we have the distinct pleasure of having them as delegates at various events, and as well as getting them to register to vote.
Now, you mentioned your efforts usually in the fall to get out the vote, to get people to register. You also have this event every spring, Meet Your State Legislator. And it's coming up on March 21st, Peru High School. How many years have you been doing this now?
This is the fifth.
Fifth year of doing this. And really the idea behind this is to encourage high school age students to meet their representatives in the Assembly and the New York State Senate, to come meet them in person, ask them questions, and really find out what it is that they do. And why did you decide to do this a few years ago, and why do you think that this is so valuable?
The New York State League of Women Voters, every year for, and I really don't know how many years, but they have provided an event called Students Inside Albany. And every year, leagues were asked to send a student to this event. And during that event, which is a marvelous event, students from all over New York State are part of a conference, so to speak, where they go to Albany and they spend 3 days shadowing legislators and actually being a part of the legislative sessions and all of some other peripherals that go along with the political, nonpartisan situation in Albany. Well, in order to do that, the league was allowed to send one person out of all of Clinton and Essex County. And so to do that, they had to write an essay. Now, I don't know about your high school students that you know, but most teenagers, most juniors or seniors, are not going to write an essay if the odds are so huge that they're not going to get chosen. And so we really wanted the opportunity to bring Albany to them. How can we touch as many students as possible? And so to do that, we brainstormed and came up with a program where hopefully that schools would send a couple of delegates. We made it so that there's also an awards program for the students. So each school, based on their criteria, as far as a student who is interested in government and who has achieved during the year, would choose 2 people to come to this event. And at this event, they would be honored. They're given awards. And of course, it all depends on the generosity of 3 people, our New York State legislators, and they were on board with this. And when you think about it, they're giving up a Saturday, a free Saturday. They never have too many days, really, where they have time to call their own. And they were excited about it because it's an opportunity to engage with youth on a nonpartisan basis. We have so many things, particularly in the last few years, that have been so divisive, so corrosive. You know, the vitriol that has occurred in our political landscape today is frightening. But this was an opportunity to simply interact with students, to tell them what they do, to tell them about the positive things of being an assembly person or a state senator, and as well as the committees that they're on.
We caught up with Assemblyman Dan Steck last week, and we asked him about the upcoming event and what it means to him and what he thinks of it, and here's what he had to say about it.
I applaud the League of Women Voters on that sense that anytime you get an opportunity to reach out to young people, I mean, as a politician in the business of running elections and for re-elections and just, you know, dealing with voters and how the mechanics work, when you look at the demographics of who votes and who doesn't, young people don't vote. And yet young people, they're the ones that have a lot at stake because they're going to pay for whatever decisions are made in Albany and Washington. So, you know, anything that can be done to raise their awareness and to get them engaged, or at least be aware, and hopefully to participate. Anytime I have an opportunity to talk to school kids, whether they're high school or even younger or even college, you know, the points that I drive home is, if you do nothing else, you don't have to be an activist. You don't have to picket. You don't have to volunteer, you know, 50 hours a week. It's great if you do, but at a bare minimum, spend 10 or 15 minutes a day with a newspaper and vote. I mean, at a bare minimum, if you do those two things. Because frankly, most teens and 20-somethings, they don't do either one of those. And so you want people to be informed and you want them to participate. And so I applaud the League of Women Voters that this is a nice program that they do to try to engage the younger crowd that's coming up, that is going to be paying the taxes before they know it.
So he obviously thinks this is a great event, looks forward to it every single year coming up. Really, the idea behind it is to try to get students interested in government and politics. And has it worked? Have over the 5 years, have the students who have participated stayed involved in politics or even gone on to start political careers of their own?
I have been very impressed with that fact. We bring the Students Inside Albany participants back to speak to the League after their experience. And I believe without exception, and maybe I'm not remembering perfectly, each of them has said that although they had not thought previously that they would like politics because there's so much dirty politics, and that's just a term, but these people, after they had the opportunity to meet in Peru with our very wonderful legislators, I think we are uniquely blessed with our legislators. This program probably wouldn't work in a different kind of area. But for us it works because they're all there and they're not patting the kids, but they're just nurturing them in every possible way, including answering their very, very tough questions. And believe me, the kids don't let down.
They don't. I've covered it a number of years, and these aren't softball questions that get thrown to them. They get hit with some pretty tough policy questions, and
the kids don't let them go.
No, and the positions they've taken. I remember within the past couple of years, the state legislature has passed gay rights, gay marriage, but that a couple of years ago was a question that they were pressed on by the students. So you're right about that, about the questions that they get. If the first couple of years they thought that this would be questions about how do you like your job and things like that.
Well, they do get that too.
They do, but they definitely get pressed on it. You mentioned about dirty politics and not literally, but does that bring up the issue? Is it harder and harder for you folks to get people interested, to get them to register to vote, to get them to want to participate, because they're so discouraged about the state of politics? We see poll after poll that shows the approval for Congress at an all-time low, and many other political leaders as well. Does that make it more of a challenge for you to try to get people, especially young people, involved today?
I think absolutely it is a challenge, and I think it's a time for the League to try to think of more creative ways of reaching the young, but also reaching other non-voters. And as my experience from being up in the North Country for only about 9 years now is that there are a number of people who are absolutely clear in their thinking that they are not going to participate. And they may or may not be registered, I don't know, but they're simply not going to get involved. And I think the nonpartisan activities that the League gets into is one way of doing a number of different things that are generally things that everybody can agree are important things to work on. And that's just one way to, I think, leverage that to then try to go to the people that won't vote and make the case that it's important. It doesn't help that there's so much money involved in politics. It's coming from other places besides the voters. It's not coming from the voters. It's not coming from their local government. It's coming from outside. And that I think makes it really hard for people to want to participate.
Such a big part of your mission as a nonpartisan grassroots organization is the getting people to register, getting them involved, getting them to the polls, educating them on important issues, on the candidates. You host candidate forums and debates, you have for many years. But the League also does take positions on issues, and part of your mission is also to educate voters and the public about important policy issues that you feel they should know about. And is that expanding? Are you getting more involved in some of the major? You've always been involved with the open government, sunshine laws, transparency. That's always been a big part of what you do, ethics. But are you now researching and trying to educate people on other major policy issues in New York?
We are. When I was a candidate for the legislature a few years ago, I was the only person talking about hydrofracking. When I got back into the League after I lost the race, I began talking about hydrofracking even more. And by that time, there were 3 or 4 other people in the League who were also excited about it. They had seen Gasland, and so we formed, I should say, a study group on hydrofracking. This past year, I believe it was it 2014 we got this law passed?
Yes.
The hydrofracking group went to the county legislature and petitioned them to do a study on transporting effluent from hydrofracking and other petroleum deals. And law number 1 on the county laws in 2014 is one that says the access to transporting fluids from this waste, this waste fluids, shall be curtailed. And I was very, very, very proud of that. That is an outstanding group, and it's a grassroots thing, and now other people are believing that it's a good idea. The more trains that blow up, the more people agree with us that maybe this isn't the safest process in the world.
So you've taken positions not only on hydrofracking, but also on the Bakken crude oil that's being transported by train across New York and down through the Champlain Valley every day as well.
Yes, as a matter of fact, Susie Johnson, one of our members, has introduced into the state for consideration, State League for consideration, a study that proves that that is not a good thing to do. Susie wrote up a wonderful explanation, and so it's taking hold. But of course, there is the problem of oil, and I don't want to get into that now because that's a long project. But we do need petroleum in this country. We are no way ready to give up our dependence on it. So we have a problem.
But you, like many others, have concerns about the moving pipelines.
Keeping it safe.
Moving it by train. And you also went before the city of Plattsburgh, and the city passed a resolution as well to taking a stand against allowing hydrofracking waste to come to the sewage treatment plant or go to any of the landfills in the county as well. Is it having an impact? Are you finding that people are listening to the stands you're taking, the research you're doing, and is it affecting people? Are they listening?
I believe so. I'm not the only one talking about it anymore. I like the company.
And are there other major issues on the radar that you're taking stands on? Obviously hydrofracking and oil trains are two of the biggest right now here in New York State.
Well, we are talking about renewable energy too. And the good thing that has come out of this whole business with the hydrofracking is that we have been joined by other groups who are interested in similar things. And of course, we get stronger the more people there are pushing the ball uphill. We had a forum presented by another group with our sponsorship at the town of Plattsburgh Town Hall. And we expect that will be extremely interesting, and we're very proud of having the tie-in with other groups that are interested in similar things.
So you think it's resonating, you're reaching people, and they're listening?
I think so. We hope so.
I'd just like to say I'm on the fracking study group. I've been involved with that, but one of the things that we're trying to do is to educate the Board of Supervisors in Essex County to make them aware of what's happening with the waste coming from fracking in Pennsylvania. It's coming into New York. It's been coming in for many, many decades, both horizontal and vertical fracking waste. And it's the wastewater that's got radiation and heavy metals that's coming from the earth that's really the danger. And a lot of it's being spread on roads, desalination. We're not sure exactly how much of the road salts might be coming from that waste stream where the salts are being extracted from the fracking waste, but it's dangerous stuff. If it gets concentrated, particularly, it's dangerous. There are many towns in the southern tier of New York that are banning all fracking waste from coming into their towns. I'm concerned, and we're concerned, that it can come up here too. That if the towns here are eager to get cheap salt for the roads, it can end up providing a market for subcontractors to get rid of it that way.
Would many of them be unaware of where the salt is coming from, and that there could be the contamination and the danger?
Yes, particularly since a lot of it is based on state contracts, and the state contracts are based on laws that protect the waste from oil and gas industry from being classified as toxic. So that's protected. It can therefore get into the state contracts, and from there it can get into the town and county contracts. And so I don't know what is happening, but there's no testing. There's not sufficient testing to find problem areas. The industry is unregulated, basically. And the danger is, I think, with us, as more and more of the towns in the southern tier block the dispersal of the waste there, the industry in Pennsylvania is going to be looking for other places. So
there are environmental groups that are watching out for issues like that. There are consumer groups. There are groups that stand up for people, Common Core and others like that. But do you see your role being very important in this day and age in getting this information out to the public, to voters, that otherwise it may not get out, that perhaps the media isn't doing as much investigative work as it used to, or as much coverage of these issues when it comes to environmental issues, when it comes to ethics, when it comes to open government? So do you see a responsibility that the League of Women Voters has, and a need for what you're doing to really get this out there when it comes to these issues?
Well, I think we have been doing some things that does expand on that responsibility, in that we have sponsored many informationals. For example, for the last few years, we have presented, the Fracking Committee has presented films, interactive talks, etc., at various venues that the general public can come and glean information from. One that comes to mind in particular was the event that was held in Waylandsburg. Mm-hmm. And in Waylandsburg, there were the film, do you remember what the?
It was Gasland.
It was Gasland. It was Gasland.
And our advisor, Gary Henry, Professor Gary Henry,
yes.
ran a very, very good question and answer period after the movie was shown, and there were over 100 people. I think I counted 102.
At the Waylandsburg Grange Hall?
Yeah.
It was
Yes.
pretty full, and I was very, very pleased with that. We've shown the film other places, and we do have several collegiate advisors, Ed Romanowitz from SUNY and Gary from Clinton College, that work with us and help us in these. And last year we had a senior from SUNY presenting the results of his senior project on this at the library for a crowd of women voters and parents and friends. It was a very good event, and the kid was so well informed. This is what blows my mind. I don't remember when I was young that I was that well informed about stuff like this. I knew a lot about music, and I knew a lot about opera and figure skating and that sort of thing, but I did not know anything about the environment. It was just there, and it's something that I knew I would always have, but alas, that is not necessarily so.
So you think there's a greater need for what you're doing to educate people, inform them on these issues?
Yes, and I think it's also our responsibility to make sure that we have the best people available as far as their knowledge and their research and expertise to help us not to get the word out, so to speak, and to help us with any studies that we do, and to help us with any informationals that we hope to present to the group.
What do you see as your role for the next 10, 20 years? Do you see it changing? Do you see how you reach out to voters and people in the public changing? What do you see as the League's mission and role, say, for the next couple of decades?
I think it will be pretty much what it is and what it has been, except that I believe we should learn more about the social media and how best to employ that in our work. I believe that what we're doing will always improve because it is the nature of our membership to be dissatisfied with the way we are. And one of the ways that we need to grow, I think, is in the social media so that we have more up-to-date, cool, if you will, ways of contacting people and letting them contact us.
And as we see in this day and age, that's really how more and more people are communicating. The traditional means, the media, newspapers, television, and traditional perhaps town gatherings maybe are changing, and that could very well be the way to reach people in the future is
They
through
all
social
take
media.
time. They all take FaceTime. I hate that term, but it is a term. If you have your whatever you have, because I don't have all this stuff, but if you do, you can do this and you get the world on a little screen that you're holding in your hand.
Sure.
What's wrong with that? I don't know what's wrong with it. I don't know what's right with it. But I have to
But
believe
you're
that
reaching
it's working.
potentially you're reaching a lot more people, and you're reaching a much younger audience.
Yes.
Well, that is true. That is true, although I still believe in the person-to-person interactive
I do too.
function.
And I don't think that's ever going away. But it's becoming harder and harder. The world is getting bigger at the same time that it's getting smaller. And somewhere in there is our expanding role.
Our role will continue to be to help to get out the vote. I think you're going to find some changes, we hope, in the actual voting process. The League is, I believe, advocating for no excuse absentee voting, for online voter registration, which I believe we have now. Have been a lot of changes, and we hope there'll be more changes. But I also think we have to be very vigilant, because there are groups or world events, state events, that seem to, on some level, disenfranchise our voters, and I think we have to be very vigilant about that.
Now, you mentioned about what's on the horizon. Are you taking positions or advocating for changes in how people can vote? I mean, we hear all the time about the potential down the road, not just registering online, but voting online, and the potential of not just having Election Day be Tuesday, the first Tuesday in November, but eventually allowing elections to maybe carry over more days or weekends. Is the league actively involved in trying to expand opportunities for when and where people can vote?
The league is always actively involved for expanding the opportunities. And the New York State League of Women Voters work with good government groups and do research all of the time to try and make it easier for the public to vote and to bring information regarding candidates, regarding issues, again, always in a nonpartisan issue. And much of the decisions are made perhaps at conventions at the state level, and we take our direction, our local league takes our direction from New York State.
I think a very important part of the story that the league should continue telling far into the future is the history of the women's vote and the history of the effort to just remind people that it's just not a free gift to vote. It's something people have had to fight for and continue to fight for, or get discouraged. But there are many people who want to vote who are blocked from it now by a number of initiatives. And I think the league has a role in trying to ferret out that and get the word out and figure out how to put pressure on both government and on the electorate to.
Not so much here in New York, but we are seeing in other states where
For sure.
where voting rights, many see them as being scaled back, and so it's constant that and the history, you believe, is good to remind ourselves of how far this country has come.
Yes, and the league is a hierarchical organization. It does have the national league, and it's got the state leagues, and it's got the regional league organizations. So some of those messages need to come from the whole body, and they do. And then we have a role up here to figure out ways to make some of the things work, like getting the students to meet with their state legislators.
And you mentioned, Betty, and looking in the future, we're not quite there yet as far as that's probably a few years down the road as far as expanding the days or being able to vote online. But but actively, the league is always looking toward the future and looking to expand if possible. If folks are interested in becoming league members and volunteering like you folks, how do they get involved?
Almost everybody knows a member of the League of Women Voters, and the easiest way is to say, I'd like to join the League. We invite them to come to some of our public meetings. We have a public meeting every month between September and June, at which we present some of our own business and some of our announcements and a speaker. Our speaker this month was Lois Claremont, who brought us news about how journalism has changed. And it was very, very well received. We have about 25 people usually at those meetings. Many of them are guests who come to join us for the first time. Many of the people who come and see what we do and how we do it choose to become members later on. Sometimes, you know, our membership is sort of a evolving thing. It evolves up and then it sort of goes away, but we have experienced growth over the past few years. We we thought we were going to expand into Franklin County, but alas, that seems like the end of the world sometimes when we're trying to get people up here from Essex. John comes from Essex County, so that's why he's so valuable to us, one reason.
Is Franklin County covered by another League of
It
Women
is
Voter
not.
chapter? So that's
So it will remain uncovered. It is still in our way off hopes. But at the moment, we don't have an active enough, large enough membership to expand up there. However, we are growing into Essex County, and everything we do is now focused on both counties rather than just Clinton. And I'm very proud about that. Another thing that I think is wonderful is that members have been, not as a league, but as members have been very involved in the Women's Equality Act and in issues of women's health. Those are things that are not going away, and in case anybody really thinks that women are already equal, I would invite him or her to read the Women's Equality Act and see the ways in which maybe we still have a little distance to go. We're going to go. We're making it. Yesterday was International Women's Day in New York City. Thousands of people were there. I bet some of them were ours. I don't know that.
So for each of you, why do you do this? What do you get out of this?
I have grandchildren, and I want them to have the best world possible. And I think one way in which you work to accomplish that is to be active in your government. I think people sometimes forget that we are the government. Government is of the people, for the people, and by the people. You take away that piece where you do not participate, then you really take away the effect of a democracy. I think it's so important that young people know that they need to participate. They need to know what they're voting for. So often we say, oh, you're voting for a person, you're voting for a Democrat or a Republican or a Working Families Party or whoever. But that is not really the case. These people represent all kinds of things. You're voting for how you want your dollars spent in education. You're voting for your health rights. You're voting for who's going to war. You're voting for where is your food coming from. You're voting for all kinds of local issues. What about your water? What about your electricity? All of these are decisions that are made by your vote, and people need to be reminded of that.
Sal?
We have been talking a lot about young people here, and believe me, I do believe in young people. I also believe in older people, and I am a champion for older women carrying on as long as they can. I'm almost 86 years old. I'm the president of this very active league, and I'm a very active president. And I think I do it better now at what has got to be close to the end of my life than I would have done it earlier in my life because of my multitudinous experiences and expertise I have gathered all along the way. I was very political for a while. I ran a town in Cape Cod. I worked with Barney Frank on what is now called Romney Care and really should have been called Barney Frank Care. I've been out gadding around doing things in the public eye and not in the public eye for my entire life. And I'm not giving it up. I want to be a role model for older and younger women. Life does not stop when you become 40.
Does it frustrate you when you don't see younger women being involved?
I want to
politically
spank
involved?
them all. But I can't. I can't even spank my own 2 children and 2 grandchildren.
But you'd really like them to get involved. You'd really like.
Yes, and we were, funny, my daughter and I were talking about her daughter talking about me. And Francie, my granddaughter, says, Grandma always brushes her teeth before she goes anywhere. And I think, well, that's a pretty good role model. But I hope something else will come up at
Yeah.
another time.
Yes. Well, John, let me ask you, why did you get involved?
I joined the League because I have always respected the League wherever I've lived in New York and Massachusetts and Connecticut. The League has always been an organization that I saw was able to handle issues, major issues, in a way that brought people together rather than pushing people apart, and primarily bringing people together through the very act of voting. Everybody's vote is important, regardless of what side they're on. I believe the opportunity is there for me to participate in some important issues myself without all the vitriol, without all the horrible negative talk that is so prevalent in our Congress. And I'm eager to press some issues forward that I think are important that others are maybe a little reluctant to get engaged in. But it's that gray area where there is conversation in the League. There's people, we talk to each other. I don't even know the political leanings of anybody on the committee I'm working on. It's not about that. It's about trying to understand issues and trying to figure out what we can do to educate people to see problems and to work up some solutions. So I'm an activist, I guess, but I'm really old enough that I get very tired with the negativity. I don't want to participate in it. I want to protect myself from it as much as I can, from saying things myself that are setting the other side apart and pushing them away. That's not where we need to go. And if there can be ways for us to learn to communicate, learn to listen to opposite sides, I think that's wonderful. And these students, I have to say, that they are, many of them, the ones that I've known in the last 2 years, are students that are involved in student government. They're involved in the difficulty of making decisions and working things out. And the more we can do to encourage that, the better. And so I'm delighted that there have been these chances to work both on the fracking waste issues and on the student youth education and voting issues.
And you all see your role as important, if not even more important than ever.
Yes.
Good. Well, thank you all for taking the time to be with us. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tom.
Thank you.